The night one, the real deal. I told you I did not watch the 2-hour kickoff. I don't know if there's anything
Nobody
good.
does.
If there's anything good in that, if they play any like pre-recorded bits that like
they do play a lot of
stuff, but I mean,
they
like
do play like
new content that you haven't seen yet. Okay.
No, not typically. No. Really, the kickoff show is just kind of to give it an air of legitimacy. The way that you have like
copying all your NFL pregame shows and all that. Yeah.
Your NBA, your NFL. Yeah, it's just give it that sense of like you're about to watch a real fight happen or a series of real fights happen. And that's one thing that they've been doing a lot of recently is incorporating things that you see in the productions of, professional sports like football, basketball, UFC, things like that. They're bringing it into their product. I mean, like during like a Monday Night Raw, Pat McAfee, who's a color commentator, which is really funny that Pat McAfee, of all people, is a fucking color commentator for wrestling.
I've got thoughts.
Trust me, I do too. He needs a lot of work in that regard. The energy is there, but Jesus, Pat, you're just too much sometimes.
My first note on him, I just wrote Pat McAfee, kill me.
Yeah. Although I will say, Pat McAfee has had some pretty good moments in wrestling.
The ring, yeah.
In the ring, yeah. The sick man jumped. He did a swanton bomb off the top of a cage. Look that up. That's insane. And I don't think he knew that he was doing that.
Like going in, like.
I don't think like he went in there prepared like weeks ahead, prepared for this. I think he just knew he was doing that day of. I could be mistaken. I was listening to his Pat McAfee show, the one that was all WWE like focused. I think it was the Friday show, and I think he might have mentioned something about he didn't know he was going to do a swanton bomb either in that match or something else. But either way,
it's always hard to say because of the nature of this sports entertainment. How far?
What's real?
Where are you a character and where are you not? Especially someone like him who's not really in it.
Yeah,
like for real.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. That's the beauty. That is what it's supposed to be, right? You want the bleeding in reality into your product, so the fans always keep guessing.
Didn't they have like The Rock and Roman Reigns on some of the late night talk shows?
Yes, they had it on.
Watch any of those
yet. Jimmy Fallon, I believe.
ABC, that makes sense. No, Fallon would be NBC. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, NBC and WWE has a long history.
There it is.
Yeah, there's a long history there with NBC and WWE.
And then I don't know if that's about to change with TKO signing new media deals or anything, but
who knows? I mean, I know WWE will be moving Monday Night Raw to Netflix in 2025. But I believe that their SmackDown show, which is currently on Fox, like not like Fox News, but like regular Fox, not the political thing. Yeah, that one will be potentially moving to USA Network, which is still part of the NBC Peacock, umbrella.
Right?
Yeah. So there's that connection will probably still be there, even though I believe that's a big mistake because being on network television, that one's hard to pass up for you. The legitimacy of your product.
That means a lot less than it did even 10 years ago. Now that all the kids don't even know what channels are, so
I don't even necessarily think it's about for that demographic. I just think it's for like the demographic of their, or not demographic, but I think it's just for their stockholders. It's like, oh, you're on network television. This thing, professional wrestling, it's just so easily accessible to everybody. So that's the only thought on that.
Just like I'd like to see the major pro sports do. I think just having a WWE app to watch everything would probably be the ultimate end game, but they might.
I mean, they've had WWE Network. It just never
that's what sold to Netflix, right?
So that will right now all the content on WWE Network, the app has been switched over to Peacock in the US. Outside of the US, WWE Network app is still a thing. Here's the thing, though. They never live streamed Raw or SmackDown on that because they had these television contracts.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But what were we going to before we got onto the
main production here? So I appreciated that they used The Weeknd. I like him a lot. I like that song, Gasoline. Wish they would have used more than one song because I didn't need to hear that coming back from every single ad break.
Dude, this is
that kind of cheap.
This is like the fourth straight year that they've done the weekend for the WrestleMania like theme.
Okay.
And
then I can see why that might get old. For me, this is the first one so I was like, oh, cool, the weekend. I like this song.
Yeah, no, it's like it works, right? But like at the same time, like, man, this just doesn't feel wrestling to me.
And that kind of leads me into the next thing, which was the Meek Mill intro, which I thought was a little meek.
Oh, I didn't see that. I did.
He did like the "We're in Philly" kind of hype thing. I was really hoping trying to be family friendly because,
I mean, they kind of made
it felt
Little
like
Wayne be family friendly. So
we'll get to that later. Yeah. So I thought that was a little weak, and to be fair, I don't know enough about rap. I didn't even know he was a Philly guy. So
yeah, I was really hoping he'd do like Dreams and Nightmares as like the opening.
He did like a talk, like a pre-recorded, like hype up, like when you're in Philly, if you can conquer Philly, then you've made it. That kind of thing. It was all right, but it was just kind of like, all right, Meek Mill. I've seen you go way harder on like a B-side, so.
He always goes way harder on his B-sides.
I'm guessing he didn't write whatever he was saying there.
Probably not.
The national anthem, I thought that was really good until the very end. She kind of did what everyone does and stylized the end. I was like, oh, I was so happy she got through it so quick. But she was great. Coco Jones, I don't know much about her.
I am familiar with Coco Jones in that, like, I listen to that genre of music quite frequently, and so every once in a while, whenever I have like a random playlist going, her music will pop on every once in a while. So she's solid.
I would assume she's from Philly also, since they use her, but I don't actually know that for sure. That was fine. It is weird though, and I thought it was weird when they did it in Dallas. And I know they do the national anthem for all major sporting events, but it doesn't seem to really fit the vibe of wrestling most of all.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. But
which is funny considering you would consider most of the crowd to be super patriotic and all that. At least what the outside looks in at wrestling and NASCAR type fans to be. But it's just that's our national anthem's kind of a boring song, and maybe that's my problem with it. But yeah, whatever. That was fine. My next note, because then they introduced Triple H. And it's the first time I've ever seen him in a suit, and I was like, "This is weird."
All right. Yeah, when they introduced Triple H, I'm like, "Huh, what is he going to announce something?" Because there's really no reason for him to come out.
Well, he's the chief content officer, and this is content.
And it's content, and then he's like, "Are you ready?" And then just dipped, and I'm like, none of that was necessary. But all right, continue. But I get it. I get why. But he is
supposed to be like the face, right, of the organization.
He is the face of the company from an executive part. In terms of talent, that's going to be
we'll see.
The people that we'll talk about at the
end. Then we get our announcer intros, and I see Pat McAfee, and I'm mad. And then the very first thing he says is he tries to correct Michael Cole about something he said. I'm like, dude, just know your role. You're not here to host this.
Oh, dude,
he's just a bit much for. Unless he is the main voice, he doesn't know how to be a side voice.
It's tough, right? It's tough having to listen to him sometimes. Like I said earlier, I appreciate the energy because he's actually very enthusiastic.
Very much so. Matches what you're going for there. I'd rather listen to him than listen to Rogan do UFC. I'll say that.
Yeah, and you could tell that he genuinely likes the product and he's a fan. Which makes sense because he's done like actual spots. He's done wrestling matches for WWE, and he's put himself through that shit. The problem is that if you ever watch a Pat McAfee episode, he can be a bit much in that environment.
Yeah, 4 hours of him sounds awful.
Yeah, and so it's him now just being really loud and obnoxious as a fan. And Jesus, like. Here's my problem with Pat McAfee, the color commentator, and it's that he needs to dial himself back like 3 notches. And on top of that, I'm just used to the dynamic of our color commentator. Here's how your dynamic goes between your commentary team. You have your play-by-play guy, and he plays it straight. He goes for the good guys, right? He ups the good guys, he ups the faces. And he will disparage the heels and they'll be against all these cowardly tactics. But you bring in Pat McAfee and he will flip flop on any
Yeah.
given
I was wondering
any
about
given
some of that
person.
too. I was like, who am I? Especially, and we'll get to the Mysterio fight later, but there's a lot of that in that fight where I was like, I don't even know what they want me to think about any of this right now.
Yeah, that's my problem with Pat. It's like, okay, he'll in one match he'll go for the heel. He's like, "You shut your mouth, Michael Cole, when you're talking about this guy." And then the next match, there's another heel, and then this heel he'll be like, "Oh, he's a bum. He's a bum." And I'm like, pick.
Yeah.
My God, you need to be consistent because it just helps the dynamic a little bit better. But if you're playing him off as a super fan, then it makes sense because fans will do the same thing in the crowd, right? But here's the thing. Do you really want to hear a fan in the crowd
Sometimes
on
I think it's
your
just,
TV broadcast?
it just feels more like
For 3 hours.
They just needed to have a production meeting about how to handle each fight specifically. And I
Well-
bet McAfee's too busy to do all that.
Well, as far as I know from everything Michael Cole has said, because Michael Cole is in charge of the commentary. Like,
And
he's not just your lead commentary guy, but he is
I love that I already forgot the other guy's name. What's the other guy's name?
Corey Graves.
Well, he introduced him as the heir apparent, and I was like, that's cool, because that hopefully will keep McAfee in his place.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Corey Graves. Corey Graves is was a color commentator for a long time, and he was your traditional. I go for the heel, unless there is a guy who's just so bad. I can't be on his side, right? But now he's making the transition to play-by-play guy, and it was nice to see Corey Graves back in a more natural role. Not saying that he's not a good play-by-play guy, because he is. But it's just like, it's so nice to hear him when you have Pat McAfee, when you compare him to Pat McAfee. Yeah. It's like, please, Pat, shut up right now. But when it came to the big spots during WrestleMania, like those wow moments, Pat brought the energy, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these are complaints about, they're kind of nitpicking, and this is one of his first times doing it, especially on this big of a stage. So I assume it would only get better. But let's
here's the thing, just to kind of defend Pat McAfee a little bit on this one. When you have the schedule that guy has, it is really hard, right, to really hone your craft, and especially because he does take time away from WWE to now do College Game Day. So he does step away from the booth from WWE for months at a time because of College Game Day. And then comes back after that's done.
He had been in the booth before. I thought this was like new.
Somewhat new, yes. But he needs way more reps than he's got. So, new in the grand scheme of things, but he's been around WWE now for like, I want to say since 2021.
Okay, yeah.
Around that time, but it never in like a full-time capacity the way you would want him to be to get better at this.
All right. Well, I'll lead us into our first match of the night, which I wrote down this note that later on I was like, this was a bad note because I didn't really understand. But I'll say it now so I can at least call myself out. I was kind of like, they introduced Samantha Irvin to do the introductions for the first fight, and I was kind of like, what is her role here?
The ring announcer.
Yeah, and then as the night went on, I was more and more like, she is fucking solid. She's awesome at this. So
she's amazing, man.
It was just, it caught me off guard at first just because I don't watch enough. But then, like I said, throughout the night, I was like, that was a bad point. She's really good.
And these are your, I think, just so the audience knows. So we're going through your notes, and then after that, I think we'll switch over to some of my notes. So I'm just kind of bouncing off of what you're throwing at me.
I mean, if you have anything, from before fight one that you'd like to bring up now, that might be.
No, go ahead. Because you're still talking about production stuff, right?
I was getting ready. Those are my like pre-fight one production notes. That's all I had for that. And then I was ready to bounce into the fights unless you had something else.
No,
from the
keep
pre-fights.